It's a bird. It's a plane.
This is Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action.
This is Mark Wade, writer of Superman Birthright.
And you're listening to The Krypton Report.
Welcome to The Krypton Report, the All Things Kryptonian podcast, where we talk about anything relating to Superman, Supergirl, Krypton, DC Comics, and TV, movies, video games, comics. I am your host, Tyler, the Superman of Blue, the Man of Tomorrow. So on today's episode, we're going to do Kingdom Come, Issue 2 by Mark Wade and Alex Ross. And of course, as always, can't do it alone. I had to call in the big guns. That's right, guns. Welcome, the Man of Steel, the Superman of Red, James, the Man Cole. Welcome, James.
Hey, Tyler. Just pumping up these guns this morning. No, just cleaning.
I know James is working right now hardcore on creating the Fortress of Jamesitude. So.
Yes, sir.
See, James is a little bit different than me. See, when I moved, the first thing I did was secure the Hall of Justice here. And I was like, I need my space. James was, he was a good father. He took care of the rest of his family, then started his, room for him. Well, what can we say? Sometimes you just need your own space.
Yeah. Been here for 4 weeks now. I think it's time I start to clean up my area.
Yeah, it's crazy how much time goes. But let's see. Not really any news since our last conversation. I think the only thing was I got to watch the newest episode of Titans.
Yeah? What'd you think?
5, Lazarus.
Lazarus.
Really it really helped put what they were doing with this Red Hood in perspective. Got a Superman.
I assumed they would.
Name drop and a Metropolis. So that was cool. Still, I still am having such a hard time with eyeing Glenn as Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. I mean, and for the fact that it's such a compressed timeline, for the fact that, Dick Grayson is fully grown and he's like in full on career as a police officer, at least to the beginning of it. And then, from the time he leaves, he brought Jason in a week later. In what time frame was Barbara Batgirl, and had her accident? Was that before the show even started?
Yeah, it would have been when Dick was younger. It's also interesting because Jason couldn't have been Robin for too long for Barbara to say she knew Jason, she loved Jason. It's like, it is. I mean, that's the thing you run into with the Bat family, and that's something that Scott Snyder addressed with the New 52 was compressing the timeline so that you can get Tim, Dick, Jason, and Damian all as, and Barbara in essence. That's why they aged up Dick Grayson to be more like 16 when Bruce takes him in. They had Tim just be Red Robin. So there's kind of some overlap. And so it's just one of those things that you kind of have to compress the timeline or else it just...
Well, I mean, I think the timeline needed to be compressed, for as many years. I mean, Robin's been around for 80 years, and we didn't get a second Robin until, the 70s? About the 70s, right?
70s?
I'm not sure when Jason Todd came about.
I would say the 80s, because I'm pretty sure...
I know he died in the 80s, but I'm not sure how long he was around.
There that long. Let's look at this fancy dandy thing we have called the internet.
Yeah, that's exactly what
I love when I go to type in information. Jason Todd first as Robin, 83.
Oh, wow. So, even a little bit later than I thought. So, yeah, I mean, Dick Grayson was Robin until the 80s. So, I mean, it only stands to reason that Bruce would be a tad older by the time Dick goes out on his own, but then everybody else would have to come in pretty quickly back to back. You know what I mean? It was just Bruce and Dick for a long time, and then probably Barbara was in there at some point, and then Dick disappeared, or rather took off, and then he brought in Jason right away. Jason wouldn't have been Robin for too long, especially in this continuity. He was only Robin for about a year and a half, to the point where he got killed.
Yep.
So, I mean, it only makes sense, but even still, to have Bruce this old and all this to say, you know, Ian Glenn is still such an old Bruce Wayne.
I just don't.
Like,
I mean,
way older than Ben Affleck. Affleck's age when he did BVS was like the age Ian Glenn should be.
Yeah.
Bruce should be in the show.
But he just, the way Affleck looks, carries himself, in his physical prowess. You know, Ian Glenn, if you were to say like he was playing like a retired Bruce Wayne who was the younger version, had been Batman 66 type thing, okay, I could see him as like, if I squint, kind of older Bruce Wayne, but I can't see him as Batman.
Yeah,
like
I could see Ian Glenn as what Kevin Conroy was in Crisis. I can see him as what Batman is, what Bruce is in Kingdom Come. Very old, white hair.
Yeah,
with the freaking prosthetic suit on and everything.
You know, people try to say that the worst live action Bruce Wayne Batman was Kevin Conroy, and
he wasn't even Batman, fools.
I'm just like, the whole point of that whole thing was it was a worn out old Batman, and the reason you get Kevin Conroy is because he is the voice of Batman.
Yeah, like this, he's done being Batman in that. Like he was Batman at one time, but they even state the reason he's in that suit is because of his fight with Superman, his fight with Clark. He's the reason he has to wear that suit. So he's literally to the point where his body is degraded. He cannot function, you know, like physically move and things like that without the assistance of the suit. So at this point, it makes sense that Kevin Conroy was old and, you know, a thinner man, because Bruce would have been so degraded by that time.
Yeah.
So it's stupid for them to go, he's the worst Batman. Like,
people are stupid, period. That's all I got to say. They're so critical over everything that.
I know, and all of the and so critical over everything, and we all know that it's a multiverse. That every different iteration basically exists on its own universe. That they're separate from each other. That they're not a direct adaptation. A direct adaptation of the character pulled off of the comic for a particular story. They are an interpretation to fit a story being told. How is that so difficult?
I know. But speaking of Kingdom Come, that's what we're here to tackle. So we can jump into issue 2 of Kingdom Come.
If you want to help out this show and any other show on Southgate Media Group, and you really don't have the extra money to do so, check this out. Go to southgatemediagroup.com. At the top, there's a link to Amazon. Click that, log into your Amazon, shop and buy like normal, and part of the money that you spend comes back to us to help us with our podcast. Hello, everybody. I just want to let you know that Southgate Media Group has its own Patreon. That's right. For $5 a month, you can get exclusive shows, content, and interviews with the different podcasters of the network. This Week in Geek is a Patreon exclusive only series. So check it out. Go www.patreon.com/Southgate Media Group. We are always adding new content.
This is Dan Jurgens, and if you want to have a good time, keep listening to the Krypton Report.
Which we get our introduction to Bruce Wayne.
Yep. Look at that segue.
I did that on purpose.
I love the artwork. Like when I open this book, I have my actual book copy out. Yay. And you know, I love the use of the biblical scripture because it says, "And I saw 7 angels which stood before God." And I thought about this. So recently, I listened to a recent episode of Digging for Kryptonite, which I've talked about. It's been one of my favorite Superman-based podcasts recently I've checked out.
I've probably listened to about 3 of their episodes now.
I'm going to actually have him on the show hopefully here soon, and then I'm going to be on his show in a few months. We have something planned. And one of the last episodes they did was he had his friend who is a minister, and they were kind of examining Superman and the religious iconography, and they looked specifically at the For Tomorrow storyline. And one of the things that the guest had stated was a lot of times some of the things that Superman does and the way people behave is the same way that angels are received in the Bible, about the way that people would bow and all this. And I just thought of that like, yeah, that's really interesting. When we turn the page and we get into like the first page, it starts with Norman still talking to, you know, the Spectre, and he talks to him about it as like he's an angel. But what really got my you know, just thinking about 90s comics and stuff is when you have here where's his name? Hold on, I'm looking at how would you pronounce this? Americommando?
Yeah. I believe that's how I said it in my head.
Like if this doesn't look like
swipe back a little bit here.
You know, I love going back and knowing how much this book was influenced by the way the comics were of the 90s of like Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, and stuff with all the straps and the costumes and guns and things that didn't quite make sense.
No, yeah. 90s was a hardcore commando characters in comics. I mean, that's when Spawn came out.
Like you see Lobo was here on the Statue of Liberty.
I like that.
And just like him throwing out these people who are seeking refugees, these refugees seeking sanctuary. And he's like, don't you know America's not as big as it used to be? For God's sake, Kansas is gone. And it's just, these are themes that still apply like, even today with stuff that we deal with. And we have, and then we have these other people who attack America Commando who are like red, white, and blue. And it says, "This land is ours to guard. America, love it or leave it." And of course, you know, there's Norman shouting, "These aren't heroes, they're madmen." And then we get that breathtaking image of Hawkman, Superman, person I'm not sure who it is, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Flash, and Power Girl. I mean,
that's the Ray.
Okay.
That's the Ray. The one thing I was like, so, like, how's the Flash in the air right now?
I know.
It's an awesome shot, but I was like, how's the Flash in the air
well,
right
this
now?
Flash isn't even corporeal. Like, he is vibrating energy. And, you know, they say angels. And Norman's like, no, not angels. Gods themselves. And the art is amazing. And then we have... So this is Dick Grayson as Robin, or is it Red Robin, or, you know, that comes up behind these aliens that are in the, and it's very reminiscent of like Batman 89, Batman Returns style suit.
Yeah. I always thought it was cool that they used that suit.
I think it's
that
great.
They put in the Red Robin suit, and that's Dick Grayson too.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, we get that when he's talking to Bruce in the cave here in a little bit. He says, Dick, he said, Dick doesn't think so.
They arrive at the UN building.
Yeah, Dick doesn't see it that way. That's what he says.
The second coming of Superman. The artwork, man, like I'll never get over this art as much as I've read this book and look at it. And I like what Superman says here at the UN, where he states, in our absence, a new breed of metahuman has risen, a vast phalanx of self-styled heroes unwilling to preserve life or defend the defenseless.
Yeah, phalanx. Yeah, I like the way that Superman speaks. Like, he comes in, he knows what he wants to say. He's not denouncing the new generation of metahumans. He just they don't have any regard for human life and collateral damage, and truth and justice. So, like, it makes the world a worse place. There's so much public relief that needs done because of all the collateral damage.
He says, we have returned to teach them the meaning of truth and justice. And then, of course, everyone's asking Superman if he's willing, ready to defeat Magog. And then they just leave.
I like how Wonder Woman steps up there when he brings up Magog, though.
Yeah. And then we get a boardroom. A very interesting boardroom. And we just see Norman and the Spectre, and there's fear in this room.
They call him Secretary General.
And Norman's questioning what they're here to judge. And that he sees images of just... And then we get Superman descending on Bruce's house.
Which Wayne Manor here looks a lot like Wayne Manor from BVS.
Yes.
And Justice League.
Destroyed, distraught. The cave is flooded. We see a lot of his items. And then the next page is where we see Bruce in the exosuit.
Yeah, we get a lot of classic cave look, and Bruce in the exosuit. And once my identity got exposed, Bane and Two-Face happened to it. Superman, what happened to the manor? It says Bane and Two-Face.
Interesting combo.
Mm-hmm.
I want that story.
Hey, we get Bane and Two-Face and Harley Quinn in the animated show. Sorry, kind of like trailed you off there.
No, you're fine.
Probably messed up what you were thinking.
No, there was a line in here I wanted to prove. He says, "Don't call me Clark." And then he talks about black as the new look for you. Which is interesting because it's just the black in the symbol. And Bruce and him were talking about the way Bruce is patrolling the city.
Like Gotham's a police state.
And this is where they bring up the Dick reference.
Yeah. And Bruce says they'll fear me more than they'll trust you. So Bruce is still betting on the fear of people.
Mm-hmm. And he says, "We have built a network, Clark. I have allies, human allies, a little more attuned than your friends to humanity needs." I like this line. For a man who can hear clouds scrape together, you don't listen very well.
Right.
And he talks about his way of being reformed. And for someone who has a reformation, will he be reformed? And then here comes Oliver Queen. And Dinah and Ted Kord. All with Bruce Wayne.
Were both written very well too. Ollie talking about the he could feel his X-ray vision, and he's probably sterile by now from it. And Ted Kord, who actually in this picture looks like Ian Glenn.
Yes, there we go. There we go. Ian Glenn is playing Ted Kord.
There we go. And he gets all scientific about it. He says, "Stop making the world safe for science, Beetle. Let an old man be paranoid. Because if they're really after you, it ain't paranoia, is it, bats?"
And I've never thought of Superman's X-ray vision actually using like X-rays. You know, I was just called
Right.
That's what he called it because he could see through things.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly could be, in different iterations. Like, one, is it just like his vision that allows him to peer through things, or is it X-ray vision, like the episode of the animated series with what was that creature, the hive mind that came to Smallville?
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the name of it now, but him and Supergirl use their X-ray vision because the X-rays heard it.
So on the next page, we get the beautiful Alex Ross artwork that touches on the origin of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. And he talks about Wonder Woman being like Superman, a paradox.
Yeah, I love that, how he calls her the eternal princess of the Amazon. She is both an ambassador of peace and a master of warfare. That's a really cool thing about her. Because it's true, she wants peace above all, but she is not beyond taking your head off.
So she's not the extremist peacemaker, but
yeah. She doesn't believe in peace to the delusional lengths that Peacemaker does. but she will take your head off if necessary. And above that, on this same page, we got the cover art from Action Comics #1 and Detective #27. The first appearance of Batman and Superman, and done in Alex Ross art style. It's friggin' awesome.
mm-hmm.
Ever since the first time I saw those pictures, I was like, "Oh, that is so cool."
Yeah, that's when I was just like, Alex Ross should just make every comic book cover.
Right? Alex Ross and Lee Bermejo, man.
Yeah,
They got this. You put their art on every comic book cover, and people will buy it.
Yep. Yes. Like when I was getting Batman, I was like, I just want the Bermejo covers. That's it.
That's why I was buying Detective, but I had to stop because it was a good story, but I just needed to cut back on a couple of books a week.
And then we have the image of Batman or Superman and his league recruiting more people. We see them, doing their thing, trying to stop the battles and bring peace about. Looks like Starfire's there.
It looked like Starfire, but it looks like she's like using like wind powers or something.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that's somebody else.
Because on the next page,
who's the one going to be in JSA with what's her name? Who's going to be in Black Adam?
Oh,
Do they just call her Tornado? I don't think so.
I can't think.
Twister?
Maybe.
Something referencing tornadoes. So
Because the
I
next
thought
page
maybe that
has
was her.
a version of Starman. So, yeah. And what I like on this page is when you see the kid pointing at Superman in the sky and he's wearing the Superman shirt, but it's the Kingdom Come Superman shirt.
Yeah. The question I got is, no, that's Dr. Midnight, isn't it? That symbol on the head. I was wondering if the person that Green Lantern Alan Scott was talking to was his son Obsidian because of the dark and everything. But I think maybe it's Our Man. Not Our Man, Dr. Midnight.
It could be Dr. Midnight. There's a lot of doctors in the DC world. A lot of people
Well,
got their
good and evil
degrees.
That's,
It's a very educated world, you know. I don't know if that's for the greater good or for the greater bad.
Well, in the Marvel universe, it seems to be for the worse.
Yeah, it does.
There are more doctors who are evil in the Marvel universe than...
So the next page, I like the conversation of where they're fighting in the fallout, and Superman says, "Diana, take a breath. They're not evil. They're just misguided." And she says, "How badly? If they want to act like warriors, I'll show them war." And he says, "You're right. They seem to have learned little regard for human life. And there is nothing more sacred than that." And it's Clark helping the rubble of an old woman. And I think that's true Superman right there. You know, the regard for human life and protecting any and all human life, no matter whose or what. And then we're back to the boardroom where we see someone being choked because they didn't get two sugars. And that's Vandal Savage, isn't it?
Yes. The guy who chokes her to death is Vandal Savage. He kills the secretary. Which Luthor really doesn't have much of a problem with, except he just got her trained up.
Mm-hmm. And then it looks like they have Guy Fawkes there with him when he's about to put on his V for Vendetta mask. It's the King, but I just think it's interesting because this is definitely like Luthor, you know? 80s, robust man.
Yeah.
We have Lord Naga with Cobra, the heirs to Ra's al Ghul's empire, Selena Kyle, Edward Nygma,
Ibn al-Zufash, I think.
Yeah, good luck with that.
That's the best I got. But yeah, they got Cobra, they got Catwoman, Edward Nygma is there with her, which I love his glasses. Mm-hmm. How the rims are question marks.
And
those are pretty cool looking.
It's subtle.
Yeah. And they got Vandal Savage here. Somebody else too, I think, but call themselves the Mankind Liberation Front.
When is a villain not a villain?
What's it say? When he labors for a greater good.
Nygma would drive me crazy with all that. So they're trying, and then Lex is getting a shave. And he has his own special little manservant.
Yes, he does. It says, who? The captain of the lightning and the thunder. Come, you have spent much time wallowing in sin.
And he says, I have the most anti-Superman plan. Isn't that right, boy? Absolutely, Mr. Luthor. And then the next page is basically like a superhero. Well, I wouldn't say superhero, a superpowered bar.
This is the supervillain pub from How It Should Have Ended on YouTube.
Yeah. He says, and then the Spectre and McKay show me. He says, "Good Lord, these kids, they're monsters." And Superman shows up. I love he looks over at the bartender like, "This doesn't help." And this heat visions the bar and says, "Party's over."
Alex Ross's art, though, man, he puts so many characters in here. You know, you see Captain Cold, you see, what's that goofy guy's name? It's kind of like the Joker. What's his name in Gotham?
Creeper.
The Creeper. Yeah. Yeah. You see Captain Boomerang. There's Solomon Grundy in there. That looks like General what's his name? The guy from Apocalypse.
Oh yeah.
Wunderbar. I don't think that's it. It's close, but it's not it.
There's so many people just padded out in the background.
Yeah.
And
Big Barda, Starfire, Question.
I love this part right here. "I'm shaken. Ain't it past your bedtime, Grandpa? Does the S stand for senile? Whatever you're selling, I ain't." And then punched in the face. "Will you shut up?" And then Superman gives his speech. His dad's speech. And he talks about being heroes and joining up, and if they don't change their behaviors, they'll be dealt with. And
Yeah, he
then-
wants them to join the league, but they have to follow the league rules.
And then we see, looks like the daughter of Big Barda and Mr. Miracle, and she's talking to. It looks like a Starfire, but it's not.
So I thought that was Big Barda, but yeah, I guess it could be the daughter, huh?
Well, I mean, the whole thing is about it's the next generation, you know.
Right.
And I like the line of, "I feel like I was just asked to become the 13th disciple. What do you think?" And she says, "I thought my dad was full of crap for being drafted by that guy, but now, God, I'd follow that man to Apocalypse. He's right, you know, the league knows the way." And then there's Oliver Queen with his response about, "You've heard the big Blues pitch. Now the Democratic response."
I like how he's drawn there, though. He's got green arrows, but he's wearing like League of Assassins garb,
Mm-hmm.
like he was in the show, and he's got a longbow instead. Doesn't have a recurve or a compound.
And then we get them in space at the table where everything's made of green energy. And then just the artwork is so breathtaking. Like here they are the league begins to confront the numbers and global scale. Most metahumans fall to the line of the Kryptonian. Social government was never Superman's area. The pressure is thrust upon him as it made him emerge as a world leader. Could even a Man of Steel break? Could bend even a Man of Steel to a breaking point? They're still searching for Magog. And, you know, I like the talk between Superman and Diana here about we shouldn't have to fight this hard. And she says, we do what we have to, and yet we're ending up with more captives than converts. He says, what do we do with those who refuse to see the light? She says, I have a suggestion.
And then they're in Atlantis, talking with an old Arthur and an old Mira. And Wonder Woman has a scuba, a diving helmet and tank, and Superman's just underwater with him.
Mm-hmm. And of course, Arthur won't let them build a prison or anything in the ocean in Atlantis. But his subjects needing him.
Yeah, he didn't want to be responsible for that many prisoners when he's got 70% of the Earth to protect, and it's just him. I mean, it's him and his armies, but it's just him. Where he says there's hundreds of champions on land.
I like this. The part that weighs heavy is where Diana states that recently my Amazon sisters decreed that I failed in my mission as ambassador, that I had not made the world a better place. They stripped me of my royalty and of my heritage. I am no longer welcome on Paradise Island. And Arthur apologizes and says, but it doesn't change his decision. And she says, resume your solitude, Arthur. Relish your world for as long as it lasts. And then we're back in space. And this is where Superman comes to her and says, how long are you going to keep that from me? You know, they start talking. They start to go in for a kiss. And then who catches them? Like little kids in the background. But I'm going to say Donna Troy and Roy Harper as Red Arrow.
Yeah, that's what I would go with.
She's not exactly Wonder Girl right now.
No. Definitely Troya.
Yeah. And they found Magog. And Superman says that, so Superman confronts him, has a great line where he says, what are you doing back in Kansas? And he, I never left, Blue Boy. And Superman's basically telling him, I can't believe that you did what you did to go after Parasite.
An overkill measure an overkill gesture that murdered 1 million people.
And he tries to blame Superman for it. And here's where we kind of get the flashbacks of what happened. And it tells about what the Joker did. Joker looks creepy being old and going bald.
Yeah, he does. Looks like Jack Nicholson now.
Yeah. Alex Ross for the future.
Right?
You know, it talks about the Joker blowing into Metropolis. And it says, how many did he take out the last time? 92 men and 1 woman. And it talks about how they tore through Metropolis to find him. And it shows that Magog killed the Joker. And you know, Magog talks about how Superman didn't have the stones to do it. Times are tough. Joker had been deserving worse than cuffs for years, so I took it on myself to lay him down. I can't be judged for that. And it says, Magog acquitted, justice done. It says, poll is 18% are with Superman, 77 with Magog, and then undecided. We see Superman with a ponytail, which I'm not a fan of. And
I'm glad they drew him in his old costume. I'm glad he drew him in his old costume, though.
Yeah, it makes
Get to see that.
the appearance of the Kingdom Come symbol even more important.
Yeah.
And it talked about how Magog wanted a chance. I wanted the torch passed. I wanted to cement claim as Metropolis's new number one. I asked for the title bout between you and me, and I won by default when you flew off with your capes between your legs. I never got a piece of you. Now you're right here, right where I want you. You were afraid that I was the man of tomorrow. You were afraid of the future. Well, look around. This is what I represent. You must be proud. And then, basically, Magog fires at Superman, and everyone freaks, and Superman just stands there. Burn his cape off. And he basically falls down and says, the world changed, but you wouldn't, so they chose me. They chose the man who would kill over the man who wouldn't, and now they're dead. Millions of ghosts punish me, lock me away, kill me. Just make the ghosts go away. Interesting.
Yeah. And I forgot that they went to the fourth world.
Yeah. This is so interesting that they go and they visit Orion on Apocalypse. And Orion's, is older and looks like Darkseid. But
he is Darkseid's son.
Right. He looks like Darkseid mixed with Highfather.
Yeah. Yeah, he does. The silhouette is absolutely Darkseid, and then just the way he kind of keeps his hair and his beard is Highfather, and his face is definitely Darkseid too. So if you've read some of the Fourth World, the original Jack Kirby stuff, you know that the Mother Box helps to keep his appearance more New God and less apocalyptic, less Darkseid. So he actually does look more like Darkseid, being his son.
I like the conversation between the two of them about Orion changing things and having the ability to. And basically that even overthrowing Apocalypse, you still couldn't get rid of Darkseid. He overthrew Darkseid to stop the rule, but yet the people chose him to lead.
Well, his discussion here thought I had transformed Apocalypse by finally overthrowing Darkseid's despotic rule. Imagine the horror of learning that to the lowlies ground under Darkseid's heels. Since Apocalypse was young, liberty was every bit as paralyzing as fascism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's really cool because, it reminds me of the end of Superman the animated series when he goes to Apocalypse and takes down Darkseid in front of all of his subjects, but they pick him up and carry him off. They carry off Darkseid after Superman says he's defeated, you're free. They pick up Darkseid. Darkseid's however evil he may be or whatever on Apocalypse, he's God. Mm-hmm. So even if he is a tyrant, he's still, even if he's a despotic tyrant, he's still basically God to them. They still abide by his rule.
That is a deep psychological thought for another day. Of just the
Right.
oppression and like living that oppression and the people that you're supposed to be protecting and serving, but yet, yeah.
So, but yeah, it's nice. So he says, so bring them to my realm, Superman. Bring to me those whose presence on your world you consider too threatening. They cannot possibly be more challenging to me than my own subjects. Superman says, deportation was never my intent. I have no desire to see anyone removed from their whole world. Given the nature of my own struggle, I had hoped that Orion, the Dog of War, could lend some wisdom, but I was mistaken.
And he says, it's not my help that you need. And then we have, basically, they built a prison with apocalyptic tech. And we see Barda, and she's putting together a security force for the shrinking prison. They're building the prison. You know, construction with that would be amazing.
Right.
A stronghold of justice. And then Norman says, it seems unwise to contain so much power and fury under one roof, and yet, what other choice does Superman have? And the Spectre says, it's a question he will ask himself 100 times in days to come. Meanwhile, an ungodly fellowship has begun to manifest, one that may change all that we know thus far. And then we're back to the boardroom. Friends, I present to you our newest ally in the war against the gods, the Batman, with Oliver Queen, Ted Kord, and Black Canary.
I like how Bruce puts it, though. They've begun to build a gulag. You know this.
And Luthor says, I know I don't want to spend my remaining days there. I can't believe you're here. This must be killing you. Given the circumstances, says Bruce, what choice do I have but to throw with Lex Luthor? I mean, holy crap. And that's the end of part 2.
Yeah, that's a big thing to go out on, you know. Bruce Wayne aligning himself, Bruce, Oliver, Dinah, and Ted Kord aligning themselves with Lex Luthor and Cobra and freaking the League of Assassins, and yeah, that whole group of people. Like, that's that's definitely a high note. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And so real quickly, I know one of like the big things like we've had is they've been doing all these like really cool short boxes at comic shops of like art and stuff on them. And they have the Kingdom Come box. And I love the art, but the box is horrible. It's like zoomed up on everyone's face, and like Superman's on the side where you can't really see him. I'm like, why can't they just like zoom out? Because if you look at the individual like covers and stuff of where you have the teams, those were amazing art that I would love to have on a box and be able to look at and see. But just the way that the box is it's horrible. It's horrible. But that's just a quick note. That was issue 2 of Kingdom Come. I love this book. I feel like I could read it over, and every time I read it, I get something else out of it, or a new perspective of just where I am in my life with it.
Yeah, you definitely see I think every time you read it, you definitely see more. You see, one, you pick up more out of the visuals, as well as, you see more of, you have usually, I'm not saying usually, you either have a more closed-minded view or you have a more open-minded view as you get older. Mm-hmm. And I think especially being open, having more of an open-minded view when you read through this, you get to see how everybody from certain angles has a point. I mean, the villains are still villains, and the heroes are still heroes, but everybody seems to believe where they're coming from, and if everybody worked together, it would be better than them all conflicting because they are so centered on their own ideals.
Amen. Amen.
Kind of sounds like the real world.
Yeah. Yes, it is. And that's what's scary. That's what's scary. But hey, we will just take it as we go, you know? All right. Anything else before we wrap it up here?
I mean, Kingdom Come is a fantastic story. I'm really happy to be rereading this again. Issue 2 was really good. I think it elevated from issue 1.
I agree.
So
the hardest part for me with this is just we're doing it, one issue a month like the way it was released. And I'm like, I just want to go ahead and read the next one, but I'm trying not to.
Mm-hmm.
But all right, good listeners. James, thanks for joining us here today. As always, tune in to our next episode when we come back and discuss something super, because, man, there always is so much to discuss.
Yeah, there is.
And remember,
Look up in the sky.
The Krypton Report is part of the Southgate Media Group network of podcasts. If you have an interest, check out Southgate Media Group to see if your podcast is there. I bet it is. At the Southgate Media Group website, you can sign up for our newsletter. You'll get info on all the shows, and you can find what you want. You'll also find links to our sponsors where you can get great products and support the podcast. Also, our book, Pod Life, Podcasting Stories. It's a great book. Check it out. It's nice to hear where people come from and why they do what they do.